Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of RAD-Radio. I'm Rob Anthony Dyer, your host. Today, I have a very special guest with me, and if you don't know who this person is, then you've been living under a rock because she starred in The Wonder Years and Bold and the Beautiful. I'm talking about the super talented Allie Mills. How are you, Allie?
I'm great, and I'm not living under a rock.
That's good.
It's not the worst thing to do with this world. You could live under a rock, but I'm not. I'm sitting on a porch on a swing.
That's beautiful. California weather is my favorite.
It's pretty awesome.
Now, you have a longest IMDb credit list I think I've ever seen.
I'm so old.
I didn't mean it like that.
You just feel like IMDb kids who are 20 and stuff. Stick around long enough, then, you have a few credits under your belt.
Right.
Yeah. But it is sort of, I have to admit, it is amazing that my husband's 85, he's still working, he's an actor, and I'm still working. And I won't tell you my age, but it's, I'm not 20.
I would never ask a lady her age. That's just...
Yeah, you should IMDb Betty White.
I did because...
She's 90, so...
And speaking of which, I was just about to say, you got to work with Betty White on Bold and Beautiful.
Did.
And I found some pictures of you and her online together. It was, they were candids, actually. So what was that like? She's a legend. She's
a legend, and she's a doll. She's hilarious. She's regular. She's, so unpretentious. Doing a soap is really difficult if you've never done it before, and neither of us had ever done it before. It was my first day and her first day. And we were just coming in to do originally this 10-week storyline about the star of the show, Susan Flannery, who I guess was kind of sometimes mean as a character. They wanted to give a reason. So they went to her childhood and said she'd been abused by her father, and that Betty White, her mother, and me, her sister, had been sitting in the next room playing the piano while we heard her screaming in the next room. And that was the storyline. She was coming back to tell us how furious she was that we didn't save her. And that's how my job began. And Betty, bless her heart, had so many lines. You can't believe how many lines you can get on a soap opera, just speech after speech after speech. And I spent a lot of my time in her room just going over the lines with her, and then we couldn't remember them, and it just didn't matter. I mean, she would look at me and go, she'd sort of throw the F-bomb right on the set. Yes, she would, and go, I can't remember what the F I'm supposed to say. And everybody would laugh, and she was just so regular, nobody cared, and then they just carried on. And she's really a wonderful dame.
I've seen her on the roast, the Friars roast, when they have them late at night uncensored on Comedy Central. And I was first time I heard Betty White swear, I was like, whoa! And it's even funnier when it comes from her.
I think that's why. I think she does it for the shock value because she's so sweet. She's just such her whole persona. Even when she started in her 20s, she had on a little shirtwaist dress and a petticoat. And she was a perfect little housewife. But she has, quite a mouth on her. And that's, I think, her whole thing. It's so surprising coming from such a sweet human being.
Definitely.
Expect it.
Now, you said you'd never done soaps before, and you'd come from a world of sitcoms, obviously. Like, you were on The Wonder Years for, 5 years or 6 years?
7.
7, okay, 7.
Yeah.
I watched that as a little kid, and, everybody knew you as Kevin's mom, Norma. And so what was that like, being on a sitcom, which is once a week? I'm sure you had a lot more time to learn your lines and prepare and you were kind of jumped into The Bold and Beautiful, where it was probably a much faster-paced environment.
Well, we shot The Wonder Years the way that they shoot, like a drama show or a movie, with one camera and many, many takes, like close-ups, 2 shots, 3 shots, things like that. Whereas, I've done a lot of sitcoms that you shoot live in front of an audience, which is the kind Betty White's doing now, hot in Cleveland. And that's more like a soap because you just go for it. They say 5, 4, 3, 2, and then you just do the scene. And it's live on a soap. Of course, you can stop and fix it and edit it, and they do that a lot more than they used to on a sitcom. When I started in the 70s, I did 11 sitcoms, I think. And they really did not want to stop. They just wanted you to keep going like you were in a theater. You just sort of fix it yourself. And that's what you used to do on soaps, too. They were actually live. So if you screwed up something, you just had to fix it. Because it's like in the theater, just if you fall down, get up, That, my husband did them live soaps back in, I think, the 50s or the 60s or something. But the Wonder Years was shot very much like a movie. You got your script the week before, but then you would just do, scene by scene, and you could take your time. And there was a whole lot less to learn in a big chunk than there are on soaps. Soaps are just, sometimes the kids do 20 scenes a day, of 2 to 3 pages each. And that's just an enormous number of words to remember. So it's almost like a muscle that you develop. Mm-hmm. That I did not have when I first started doing the soap, either did Betty. Because we were in awe of these kids who just thought, wow, you guys are incredible how you do this. And then they burst into tears, and they laugh, and they do all this stuff on top of it. It's pretty remarkable.
It must be, I think, you played Pam now since 2006, I think.
Yeah.
And so now that you've played her longer, though, isn't it a little easier to remember the dialogue because it's kind of like you're more in tune with what would Pam say or do, or how would she react in the situation?
A lot more. Yes, you're completely right. And not only that, but like Pam, because you sort of become her, then you could just make it up, too. You know what you're trying to do, and if you can't quite remember what they wrote, you know what you're trying to do, and you can always sort of do it. Just sort of say it pretty close to it. So, I always try to memorize the dialogue that's really great. They write some really funny lines and some really poignant lines, and I always try to get those right for the writers.
Now, were they looking for somebody who had comedic background when they cast the role of Pam?
I don't think so. Yeah. No, I think, because the first 10 weeks were extremely serious. She was odd, that's for sure. She was a real oddball who'd been living alone with Betty White my whole life, and I was probably, I don't know what they thought, I was 50 or something like that. A spinster living with Betty White. I mean, for sure, Betty can't help it. She's funny, but they didn't want it to be. It was just very odd. She was sitting in a rocking chair with this kind of strange film noir look on her face, and she was a mean old thing, the character, Susan's and my mother. She was very mean and self-centered, but then when the story when they decided to extend it after Susan didn't get the apology she wanted from her mother, they decided to bring me out to Beverly Hills, and then Betty came out too eventually, and I think they got the idea was because I had this Doberman Pinscher dog, and he started eating my turkey sandwich on camera when we were shooting, and I started eating it with him, and then he started licking my mouth. And I thought that was really great and weird, and that's when my whole character started to get very strange.
So that was your actual dog? The Doberman was your dog in real life?
No.
Oh, okay.
He was Pam's dog.
I know he was Pam's dog. I thought you meant he was actually yours, too.
No, he was Pammy's dog, and he would, I just had my big guard dog with me all the time. Actually, the purpose of it was to scare people, because at that point I was sort of mean. But when he started licking my face and eating the sandwich with me, I think that's when it sort of went into the comic realm.
The lemon bars. What would happen when the dog ate the lemon bars? I remember that episode. Donna something.
It started off with, because I was a baker and I was trying to compete with Susan Flannery as a woman who baked and understood her husband, and I was going to be a conflict. What do you call it? Sort of a rival for John McCook, for Eric on the show. And that didn't really play out. Susan didn't really want to play the rival thing, and it didn't really play out. So I was at that point established as a cook and a baker, so I made lemon bars. And I was really mad at Susan's husband, John McCook, for having an affair with the blonde bimbo, Donna. And so I poisoned John just enough to give him heart failure. Of course, how would I ever know that was it?
Oh, you replaced his Viagra with sleeping pills, I think.
Something like that. Sleeping pills or was it Viagra?
Yeah, you replaced his Viagra with sleeping pills so we couldn't cheat on Stephanie with Donna.
But didn't I put something in the lemon bars? I tried to kill him. I wasn't trying to kill him, but I was trying to scare him or something, or make people think he was dead. I can't really remember. But then Donna poisoned Tiny with the lemon bars the same way, is my recollection. She tried to kill him or something by feeding him the lemon bars. I don't know.
I think, yeah. It was
it was just the sugar that killed him. I don't know.
Every time I see those lemon bars, I just want to go and make some. I'm telling you.
I know. I've learned how to make pretty good ones.
Oh, really?
I do, yeah. I make it at Christmas.
This is so good. And then, of course, the other day when Pam said, "Oh, let me make the wedding cake," I just died laughing because I love what they did with your character because she's quirky, she's offbeat, but she's not, like, over the top. You provide enough comic relief, but it's kind of natural. I think everybody knows a Pam in their life somewhere, or has known, you know?
I hope not. No, I'm kidding. I hope so. Yeah, I had an aunt kind of like Pam. He was very eccentric, and everybody loved her. Yeah. She always wore big dramatic scarves and went to the opera and made big entrances into the room and drank a lot of wine, and she was great.
Yes, and now the other day when Pam was modeling some of Quinn's jewelry, and she kept sticking her neck in the air and just like making weird looks at people, like, "What's wrong with your neck?"
I know. Well, you know what? So I couldn't do it. What they wanted me to be doing, but I couldn't really do. I didn't know how to make it that obvious. They wanted me to be sticking out my chest.
Oh.
To show the necklace, right? Mm-hmm. And that was sort of a boob joke, and they wanted Caroline and Rick to think I had gotten a boob job or something. But I kept sticking out my boobs, but I was really sticking out my neck and the whole thing. I saw it. I know. It looked like I had a cranial problem.
I think it was perfect. It was classic Pam. Now, Pam had bipolar disorder, right? And
she does.
And that, I was wondering if, when they first had her on and you left the show, they kind of shipped her off to a mental hospital like she was crazy. But since you've come back, I think you've really portrayed somebody with bipolar disorder in a healthy way, not making them out to be completely insane or loony, because there are a lot of people who have misconceptions about that out there. I'm just curious if you had any fan feedback on that subject.
I'm actually not sure about the, I think there was one, in the magazines, they did one thing where they got fan feedback about it, like asking people what they thought. I've never gotten in the letters. No one has ever mentioned it to me, but I've been thinking about it. Have you ever seen the movie Silver Linings Notebook?
No, I haven't. I'll have to check it out.
Oh, first of all, check it out. It's truly a fantastic movie. And in the movie, Robert De Niro, the dad, has bipolar disease. So does the son. And so does Jennifer Lawrence, who I think won the Oscar for her performance. She's phenomenal. She's a kid. Do you know who she is? Jennifer Lawrence. She was in the Hunger Games.
Okay, yeah. She's
a fantastic actress. Anyway, she and the lead boy both have bipolar disorder, and they're really in your face. They have no barriers. They have just no social filter. They just say what they think. And that's the aspect of Pam that I like the best. And I would love it to get a little more, if I advance, like, for example, I may be having a little fling with somebody coming up. I don't know. But if I do, I want Brad to see the movie, and I want to talk to him about it. Because the way these two interact is funny, but it's also really touching, because they just say what they think. And that's the aspect of bipolar disorder that can be moving instead of, negative. Mm-hmm. And I tried to play that, like in the episode when Betty died, that I just completely was out of control with the emotion of, Susan could keep it all under control. But I just, like, freaked out when she wanted to go to a hospital, and we told her that we wouldn't take her there. And it's like, you can't contain everything, is my understanding from what I've been reading and people that I've talked to, is the mood swings they seem normal to you when they're happening. But to other people, you seem sort of out of control, almost like a child,
Mm-hmm. Well, you definitely, I have some family members with that, and so it is something that is close to me, and I think you do a great job. I can tell you've done your research, and as opposed to some other, I've seen it portrayed in other places where it wasn't, done as accurately. So I just want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I hope that I get to do more with it, actually, because I think I think a lot of people are suffering from it. And, when they don't take medication, which is my big thing, I'm on medication now in the show. But when you don't take medication, the swings are much bigger. And, I'd love to do an episode or two about that, too. So, who knows?
That'd be a great storyline. And
from our lips to God's ears.
Well, I tweet a lot, so I could send a few tweets out. And now, Pam, with the love interest, she's definitely been pining after Eric. And that episode not a few months ago when somebody went into the forestry mansion with a knife and we saw the shadow, I think it was a Friday cliffhanger. It turned out to be Pam with lemon bars jumping in bed between Eric and Derek. Now, I thought she'd gone off her meds and was going to go, psycho on them.
I think I was. I mean, I chose that for those few episodes, like when I stuck the knife in Taylor's face in the magazine. Yeah. I chose that I hadn't taken my meds right then because I was upset about him. I think a lot of times people choose not to take them when they, when they're in a bit of a tailspin.
Mm-hmm. They feel like taking their meds will take away from the feeling.
Yeah, they want to feel their feelings, and I think, she really wanted him at that point. And, of course, the challenge is that, of course, when I read that scene, I knew that it was supposed to be funny. You can't jump into bed with someone at the end of the scene and it not be funny. And yet I also wanted it to be real, that I really didn't like Taylor with him, that I really was upset that Stephanie would not have liked that I didn't like it, that I deep down liked Eric myself. I mean, unless he's going to marry somebody amazing, which I could acquiesce to, but not Taylor. It was like, I'm drawing the line. But then they had me like her at the end. It's like, I don't write this, so I just have to sort of go with what's going. But even when I jumped into bed, I wasn't really approving of them. I hope that got across.
Oh, yeah, no, it was great because I think the way I took it was with the camera work, kind of, it was like, it made it look like Taylor was afraid that you were going to go off on her, but you were just acting normal. It was just like the camera angles kind of would point to you and the knife in a weird way, and so it kind of made it seem like it was Taylor's perception, or that maybe you've gone off your meds. But yeah, it was done very well.
Yeah, they wanted me to walk that line where you kind of don't know.
You were trying to scare them, but you're like, hey.
Yeah, and it was just a spatula.
Exactly.
That was one thing I thought about on the set, because when I got there, that when they had me hold up this thing, it was a knife. And they said, well, you can cut lemon bars and serve them with this. And I said, no. I say to her, what are you worried about? It's a spatula. I said, this is not a spatula. And I said, they make spatulas that are small and thin that can look like a knife if you hold it up in the thing. And I made a big stink about it. And I made props go get one. They had to go buy one. Because I said, this is not, it's not right that I would actually have a real pointed knife. Because that really, then it becomes that I am deranged and, it's good for your shot. It will look like the movie Psycho, but it isn't good for for the whole long end of the scene. And they said, well, we could switch it out with a spatula. And I said, no, you can't. So anyway, we went and got a spatula.
Yeah, that was really funny. I remember, at the time I was doing like a radio show where we did the weekly soap reviews, and I just spent a while talking about that whole thing, and I thought it was great. Now, do you ever trouble when you just lose it during a funny scene, or are you well prepared enough where you've read your lines and so it's not funny to you anymore?
No, every once in a while we will crack up. For sure. Especially if you're working with John McCook, it's kind of hard. I think even in that scene, actually, we cracked up once.
I bet.
In bed. I think we did. I can't remember now. But we definitely have had, spurts where the whole entire cast will start laughing. And you can't continue. You just have to stop. It's kind of like laughing in school or laughing in church. It's like if you get one person going. A lot of times it's at the big weddings and things like that, too. Mm-hmm. Because you're just standing around all day and you're tired. And, somebody will tell a joke or do something and everybody just falls apart. It's funny. So it's oftentimes just something that one of us will do more than what the scene is about. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, now, Pam with the love interest, I trying to think, I was like, maybe.
You can't figure it out.
I know.
It's a secret.
It's got to, no, I'm not going to try. No, I have.
You'll never guess. I'm
adding a little prediction section to my website where I'm putting like my crystal ball where I predict what's going to happen, but, I would never ask you.
It's nothing I ever would have predicted, so if I couldn't have predicted it, I don't think you will. And I have no idea if it will ever go anywhere, but I just have a funny feeling it might, and for reasons I can't really say either, because then I'll get something away. But I just, it's odd and quirky, and I think, you know, could be really fun for a while, but I just don't know.
Well, that'd be cool. I love seeing Pam on the screen, and I talked to Windsor Harmon a few months ago, and it's good.
Yeah, he's going to be back for a while.
Yeah, he's coming out of the basement. You know, his daughter's coming back, and they had her at the Rapid Aging Factory, I guess. So she's going to be, you know, who knows how old? Probably close to her 20s, right? So do you still keep in touch with Fred Savage or the cast of the Wonder Years at all?
I do. I haven't seen Fred actually in now a couple of years, I guess, but I was very close with his parents, so I see a lot. And I saw Fred, I used to see him more, but then he got married and had kids, and he's busy, he's directing and stuff like that. So I don't see him that much, but I keep in touch with his parents, who, they're my age, which is so awesome. You know, he was only 9, so Joanne is probably younger than me. His mom, I'm trying to think how old she was when we were doing the show, but they're great human beings. And I see Dan Lauria a lot, who played my husband. And I talked to Jason, who has become quite a little entrepreneur, businessman.
He's friends with Scott Baio, and he was executive producer of his reality show, I think, right?
And when was that?
Oh, a few years ago.
Yeah, that's what he just does. He got into serious business, like some big business back east in Atlanta, Georgia, and now I think he's back doing reality television producing. That's what my understanding is. I talked to his mom too.
So you were like their mom on set, and their parents.
Oh, I was. That's the thing. I mean, that's a long time when somebody's just 10 years old. You know, I think Fred was 9 maybe, and Danica was 9, and Jason was maybe 11 when we started, and then, you know, for the next 6.5 years. It was really sort of 7 altogether by the time we made the pilot, but it was half a year the first year. And it was wild because the pilot was so successful, they put it on after the Super Bowl, and we'd only made the pilot, you know, and I think we were about to make 6 more episodes, but that's how strong they thought the pilot was, that they chose it for after the Super Bowl, which is, you know, like a really big deal, and that's sort of the show that they're going to tout, you know. And we had no idea we were in that kind of a show. And then the first year, and we'd only done 6 episodes, we won the Emmy for the best show. And we didn't expect that either. Dan and I had quite a few glasses of champagne, and we were the only people there because Fred was homesick, and the producers were having a baby. And Dan and I were just sitting there, and then I said, I got a premonition, really strong. You know, sober up really quick and think, because you may have to speak. You know, they called and it's the last thing at the Emmys is Best Sitcom. That's the very last category of the night. And up we went to get them. And Fred wasn't there, and Carol and Neil weren't there, and it was fun. I got to carry it all night. It was truly fun.
Yeah, they're pretty heavy, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
So, wow, that was amazing. The good thing you got that premonition. But, I mean,
I know.
That show is just definitely such a integral part of my childhood, and I think people in my generation, you know, it was probably a little younger than Fred, but now I've seen it later and caught it, you know, as an adult, and there's a lot more to it than I got when I was a kid. But I think it had that appeal where the kids could relate to it on one level, the adults could relate to it on another level, and there aren't very many shows like that anymore. I
know, and it's a shame. Because I remember, you know, back in, I'm quite a bit older than you, I can tell from your voice, but we used to watch TV with our parents, and nobody does that anymore. I mean, nobody does it. Sometimes you go to a movie with your parents, but or watch a movie with your parents, but there aren't, you know, we'd all sit around and watch Mary Tyler Moore and All in the Family, and it was like these nights where you'd watch shows that were great for kids and grown-ups at the same time. And it's just, you know, everybody's got their own things they watch now, and it's sad. It was fun to do that as a family.
Well, that was a great show, and I mean, I've been a fan of yours since I was a kid, and I love you on The Bold and Beautiful. And
thank you, Rob.
Definitely looking forward to the Pam's love interest, because that's going to be interesting no matter what.
But we'll see. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen yet. It's just beginning. So.
Oh, cool. Well, I want to thank you again for taking some time to chat with me today. And,
it was really fun.
All right. Well, thanks, Sally.
Great. Nice to meet you, Rob.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. That was great. What a joy it was talking to her. She's such a great lady. I grew up watching The Wonder Years and The Bold and the Beautiful, and it was just felt like talking to my aunt or something. So thank you everyone for listening, and it was a pleasure having someone from The Bold and the Beautiful on the show, and I hope to have more guests from The Bold and the Beautiful on very soon. I'm not jinxing it, however, by announcing guests before the interviews are done, because it seems that when I do that, they tend to get rescheduled. So, stay tuned, and you will get news on shows as soon as they are completed, and I will be posting them on Spreaker, on Blog Talk Radio, and on RAD-Radio.net. Also, be sure to check out my brand new music site, RobAnthonyDyerMusic.com. You can listen for free to most of my entire back catalog, as well as 11 cover songs for free, and links to buy my current 2 new albums as well.